I heard him say you may have cleared your schedule, but you're busy here, and you're busy here, and you're busy here, and you're busy here. You're busy in mind, you're busy in heart. We love the language of lovers, but we're not as comfortable with lordship. And we enjoy him, we love his friendship. We can't really know him as our first love or our friend until he's Lord. And we ask him for glory. And then we yell over him for the sound of his voice. Or we run past him. And I'm not saying that's what we've done tonight, but I'm saying the Lord wants to do business with us about our busyness. He loves that we're first responders. He loves that we can go from 0 to 60 in a moment. He loves that. He loves a group of people who are not afraid or ashamed to wildly express their love. He loves that about us. But it's also our Achilles heel. It's also the thing that will keep us from glory. It's that 0 to 60 pedal. Being quick to fill the space. Be still and know that I'm God. Be still and know that I'm God. Be still and known. Be still and know that I am God. But be still and known. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and known. It's much more vulnerable to be still. Teach us your ways, Lord. Teach us. Teach us to be still. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. Jesus be Lord. Jesus be Lord. We're comfortable often with leaders because they can tell us what they think. And then we can go home. They can tell us where they think we should go, or maybe even lead us into that place corporately. But when we go home, they don't lead us there. He wants to be Lord, so He can be first love. And when you fall in love, you'll never question His lordship. You'll never question where He leads you. Whether you're comfortable or not, whether it's into hiddenness or out in the open. Because we enter in His way. We enter in through Jesus, the door. We can't know unless we're still. We can't know unless we're still. Sometimes in my flesh, when I'm wanting, I want to get into the heart of the matter, and I'm pressing into Stephen. Stephen is my husband. I'm pressing into him, and I'm talking, I'm pushing on things, and I'm wanting us to get to the heart. And every now and then he just as kindly said, well, you didn't leave much room for that. Sometimes we can talk and talk and talk. And use the language of a lover, but lovers yield and lovers want to listen. Lovers want to listen. No matter how painful it is, what they hear. No matter how hard it is to hear, they want to listen. Because good lovers are good listeners. Ray Hughes said to me one time, he said, there's a generation of young people who are lonely because they don't know how to be alone with God. We are only lonely when we don't know how to be alone with God. we only begin to fill the space. Filling the space is kind of like coping, because we're anxious about silence. We're anxious about the quiet, because then we're left to find out what we're really thinking, what is really in our hearts. Silence exposes the internal chaos. We're in the age of information. There's so much being offered to us every second. If I could count the number of phone calls I've gotten in the last 3 days, unsolicited phone calls, if I could count them, if I opened my phone, you can't scroll far enough back to see how many there were. If I had to count, I've lost count how many times I have ignored calls in the last number of days, and I feel the Lord is talking about this, because the enemy is doing everything he can to wear us out, to call until we answer, to call and call until we are so irritated that we finally answer. And then we begin to dialogue with the wrong voice. Then we begin to engage. And I feel the Lord longing for us to turn off our devices, longing for us to turn off the noise, longing for us I believe he pours out his presence. I believe he anoints us. He pours out the oil of his Spirit. I believe he gives us gifts to see what we'll do with them. The reward is Jesus. He gives us good gifts. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights. For a people who are of the light, a people who live in the day, who do not hide in darkness, who do not live in the dark. Every good and perfect gift is from above. But I think he waits to see what we'll do with what he gives. Because what holds our gaze will eventually hold our hearts. And I think because of our busyness, we're unable to properly guard our gates and discern the door that we're entering. It affects our everything. It affects every single thing we do, every choice we make, every relationship we have when we don't enter. It never went well for anyone running through a stop sign, running through a red light. There's always a collision waiting for us there. Busyness blinds us from what God is blessing. And I heard a beautiful leader say, we find ourselves asking him to bless what we're doing instead of doing what he is already blessing. When we get busy, we miss the blessing. We cannot discern rightly what he is blessing. And so we will do what we see the majority doing. We'll look at stadiums filled and we'll say, this must be God. The gifts and the fruit of the Spirit are different. We can be really, really gifted. We can receive good things. And depending on what we do with them, how we steward the gift that he's giving, will determine the fruit that we produce. Right? But the fruit will always speak of the root. There's a hustle in the house these days. There's a hustle in the house of God, and he is coming to turn over the tables again. We have become addicted to the response of the people in front of us. We have become addicted to the sound of voices raised. We have become addicted to the feeling of a room responding to us. And I don't think any worshiper starts that way. I don't think that at all. But we get busy. The work of the cross is not a moment. It is a lifetime. The work of the cross in us is not a one-time stop. He is much more than Savior, and he must be that. But it requires our stillness. There was no rushing through any process. There was no rushing through the ministry of the priests. There were a million details, and every one of them mattered. Every one of them. And he is a God. He desires and he requires. It's not a buffet. This is not a custom Christianity. He's particular. He knows what he likes. And it's always good. He's incapable of anything else. But our busyness causes us to boast in our works, in the things of our own hands. And when we run past him, this can become like a drug. And I don't mean the house of God with the people of God, the people of his presence. What I mean is we can get addicted to this expression and go home and not have anything left for him. And that defeats the whole purpose. We've already missed the whole point. Imagine what would happen if we came in with oil instead of coming in to get it. Imagine what would happen if every one of us in this room, and this isn't shame, this is what would happen? What would he do? If we minister, if we got still enough at home, if we got still enough. Listen, mommies, how many moms do I have in the room right now? Hallelujah. You're so special. Daddies are too, but hear me. I am in a season with the Lord. Almost every time I sit down, I fall asleep. I have an 8-month-old little, and to be really transparent with you, this child was 10 pounds, 11 ounces when he was born. Hallelujah. Why do I tell you that? Because I'm a tiny person. I'm a tiny person. And he eats a lot because he's a big person. And the Lord knows if every 3 hours of pumping and nursing and up, he sleeps through the night, but I don't. And that's okay. It's my joy. It's my joy, but I'm tired. And there's never a moment when you're like, it's just like when I was 20 something and I had 8 hours to spend on my face with the Lord. If I was on my face for 8 hours, this child wouldn't make it through a day. Seasons change. And with that, so must our worship, so must our response. He's not looking for me to offer him what I offered him before I had this little one. He gave him as a gift. But it will be no less costly. His name is Wilder Justice McCrae. The Lord spoke his name to us long before these last number of years, and he said he'll come for such a time as this, and he said he'll carry a wilder justice than you've ever understood or seen. He'll teach you what you thought you knew about justice. All that being said, I'm saying there is busyness, and then there is just the fullness of life. And the Lord is not shaming the fullness of life. He gives the fullness of life. But what it looks like now is every chance I get, every moment. This is a constant yielding, a constant givenness. I said this with some of the church family here. He's not looking for your giftedness. He is longing for your givenness. He's unimpressed. You can bless him, but you can't impress him. There is nothing that you can do for him or give to him that he didn't give you the ability to do first. The choice, yes, it's what he longs for, because you're lovers. We have the choice to give ourselves or not. I'm not taking away from that. But the gifts, he gives. He's looking for our givenness. He knows that every chance I get, even in the night, I'm like, Lord, keep me awake. Nobody wants to fall asleep in that space. I'm weeping, like, Lord, keep me awake. I don't want to have to turn on a renovation show to keep myself awake at night. I want the glory of the Lord. But he understands. I don't know how many times a day I say, though I sleep, my heart's awake, Lord. Every moment is yours. You wake me up, I'm yours. If you let me sleep, I'm yours. I'm beyond my physical ability to offer you what it is you ask of me. You have to do it through me. And he just keeps saying to me, I will only call you to what you're incapable of. If it's something that we can do with our own hands, it's most likely that he did not call us. Because everything he does is so much bigger than we can accomplish on our own. But we have to slow down to hear that. When we run past him, it's for us, it's not for him. We call it passion or zeal, like I'm running after. We become obsessed with the calling. It's like he calls us to something and we forget that only he can keep us. The caller is the keeper. And all he wants is everything. It's really not that much. Hate to break it to you. I even think about sometimes I see, and sometimes I've done, like there are times being with families or being with people, and we're so activity driven. We're so like, let's do this and let's do this. Let's plan all of our time together, because nobody knows how to sit at a table. Nobody knows how to sit at a table and talk for hours anymore. They're like, I'm not comfortable in these chairs anymore. Let's go to the couch and watch something. Because we don't know how to tarry. Jesus said to his dearest friends, could you not tarry with me 1 hour? You've been following me around for how many years now, and you couldn't pray with me 1 hour in my darkest moment, when I needed my friends. And I would like to suggest to us in this moment that while he is high and lifted up in glory, he is not on the cross, but he is still the Lamb that was slain. And his heart is still broken. He's worthy, but he is wounded. And we're in a moment where darkness isn't even trying to hide anymore. Cat's long out of the bag. And it's not just in the world. It's like brazenly from platforms and but he's looking for us to care more about him, to tend to his wounds, to bind up his wounds with our worship, with our love, with our time. And the truth is, I don't care what you say to me. If there's no time, it doesn't mean anything. And I'm not even like a major quality time girl. I'm not talking about love languages. Jesus gets everything. We're not going to break this down and, yeah, well, I talk to the Lord more because the words is my language. He wants everything. And he is worthy. He is worthy of that. And what we're incapable of giving him, he will give to us. Is this okay? Are you with me? I know I'm jumping around, but I'm going to keep passing it. There it is. One of the things as I was praying today, sometimes the Lord comes with like this. Sometimes he comes like fire. Sometimes he comes like water. Sometimes he comes on us with weeping, and sometimes he girds us up to stand and say something. I don't consider myself any sort of brilliant communicator or speaker. I don't. And in fact, I'd rather not. To be quite honest, I know the weight that comes with it, and I fear the Lord too much to do it if he's not asking me to. Because I'll give an account for everything I say to you and everything I don't say to you. Sometimes the problem is just what's not being said. The issues we skirt around so that we're liked. Because the majority is going this way. And I felt today that the Lord really wanted us, and I think this busyness goes with it. I felt like the Lord is wanting to help us with some really simple decision making. I feel like we've forgotten the art of asking God what he desires of us. There's a lot of theology and language, and there's beauty in it. That's like, I just think God loves your idea. He wants to know what you want to do. Yes. But I think the Lord waits to see if we'll give it right back to him anyway. There is a deeper place in love, and it is to say, I want to know what you want. There's nothing that I could desire. There's nothing that I could ask for. I want you. I want you. And whatever comes with that, we'll do that. But we've become really satisfied with the God loves our idea thing. It's just, do you hear me? It's important for us to know that we're beloved so that we act accordingly. It's important to know. It's important to pray, keep me as the apple of your eye. That was Catherine Kuhlman's favorite scripture. Keep me as the apple of your eye. And it's important to pray that. It's important to know that we're precious in his sight. But it's more important to know that he is precious. Because he'll reveal to us anything we need to know about ourselves. Amen? But we can't be busy, and we have to get still. When we run ahead, we run for us, not for him. When you love someone, it's always driven me nuts when I see couples walking and one of them is walking way ahead of the other. Isn't that weird? Like, I know that it's like they're on a walk and one of them's like, and the other one's like in the back. And I'm like, I understand culturally that's a thing, but I don't think it's the desire of the Lord. I mean, like he walked with them in the garden, with them, hand in hand, heart in heart, face to face. They were in his glory. They were with the Lord physically walking with them. In intimacy, you can't run ahead or fall behind. He wants to swallow us whole. And I don't want to invite him into my world. I want to be in the middle of his. I don't want to try to drag him into this lesser thing that I would do if it was my choice. I want what he wants. It's like asking the Lord to come sit on the front and just putting on a show for him. Like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, well, thank you, but that's, I was hoping together we could. So you were singing and dancing and shouting, and I was going a different direction. Matthew 6. Jesus is teaching and he talks about when you do a good deed or when you pray, don't do it out in front of everyone. This isn't a public thing. This is an intimate thing. Those who do these things only in public, this is your reward. If you come into this place and you're living for the energy that comes from a room like this, if that's your association with if you think that that's the presence of the Lord, energy, and we're in danger of that. We're in great danger of confusing really great energy and really skilled music. Mom was saying to me just yesterday, she came in and she said, there's music. She said that as a musician is so satisfying to hear. It's so satisfying. It's just good and it makes you want to throw something. I've broken phones listening to good music before. I did. And she was talking about how she said it stirs something up in me. But she said it's not the presence of the Lord. And she said, and I don't want to settle for that. She's like, there are worship songs, worship sets, worship communities. There's and you might it's true. Everything that they write is true. It's super good. It's super good, but it is void of the presence of the Lord. But we're so busy, we don't discern it differently. We have no idea. And we've gotten so into the energy that is in the room. We've gotten so addicted to the feeling we feel. And you know why? It's why people go on tours and lose their souls. It's why people go on tours and they get addicted to the sound of people singing their songs. And then they go home and they're lonely and broken because it's like a drug. It's become an addiction to provoke and evoke the response that was meant to be the Lord's. And I believe it's why Lucifer fell. I believe that it only takes a moment for the purity of worship to be compromised. The minute that I think that what has happened in this room has something to do with me, the minute that I think God's glory coming into the room came because of something that I did, came because it was something special that I offered, is the minute he will remove his hand. And he does. We don't know how to be, we're lonely because we don't know how to be alone. Because he puts the lonely in families. There is no such thing as lonely inside of the Godhead. You're immediately surrounded by a family. It doesn't matter if you have anyone else in this room or in the whole world for a season. You are immediately swallowed whole in family the minute that we enter into his presence, the minute that we yield ourselves, the minute we slow down and let him satisfy. And when he satisfies, these settings will be a really great extra. And we'll come in with overflow. Oh, people who overflow. I loved that. We'll come in overflowing. We won't spend all our time trying to dig the well here because we come in overflowing. Because our first love, there's no place you'd rather be than to be face to face, alone with him. Almost to where it aches you to get up and go anywhere else. Whether that's your car, whether that's your house. I felt the Lord say today too, you need to help me know what time it is. What time? Is that's going down? That's how much time I have? The down time? I'm terrible with clocks. My husband will tell you. My German husband will tell you about me in time. Love you. I want to read this. We go into the secret place, and the God who is in secret, Matthew 6 says this, the God who is in secret will see what is in secret, and he'll reward you. What is the reward? He is. Right? He'll reward you openly, but that's with his presence. Right? The reward is not stadiums. The reward is not this platform. The reward is not a congregation. The reward is not many children. Though these are gifts, right? Like, he's a rewarder of those who seek him, but he is the exceedingly great reward. And if in secret we have found the exceedingly great reward, then it doesn't matter if we're in a room of 10 or 10,000. We won't be swayed because there's only one. There's only one who's captured our affection. And there's only one voice that really satisfies. There's only one touch. There's only one touch that really satisfied. There's some people here tonight who are miserable in your marriage because Jesus has not satisfied you. You're waiting for your husband to do it. You're waiting for your wife to do it, to be everything that you hoped they'd be when you married them. Newsflash, they cannot do that for you. Put them on the altar so then they can be the helpmate they were meant to be. Only Jesus satisfies. Only Jesus. You can look everywhere else. I love the brother of Jesus. James is one of my favorite books. I don't know if you've read it lately, but it will light your pants on fire. Seriously, go back and read James. Sit with the Holy Ghost, the Spirit of wisdom and revelation, and ask him to read James with you again. See if you get past 5 verses without having to stop and repent. Just try. Dare you. There's so much packed in here. But I'm going to touch on a couple things in a minute. Because these are all things that it only happens in stillness. It only happens in intimacy. It only happens when he delivers us from our own selfish ambition and our running ahead of him and our need to get to the next thing, right? We have to quit shooting up on adrenaline, the adrenaline of energy in a room. I love this. I'm going to start at the beginning because James, a bondservant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. Do you know what a bondservant is? If you don't know what a bondservant is, raise your hand. Be honest. Just be humble. The difference between just a bondservant is someone who's been freed and has chosen to come back and attach themselves. Like I'm yours. I've given you my whole life. I'm your bondservant. I'm bonding myself to you. Okay? This is a free man who's chosen to be the bondservant. All right? To the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad, greetings. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. You'll wear out real fast if you don't get still. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But he must ask in faith without any doubting, for the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For that man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Let's see, I want to... Oh my goodness, you're going to go through this book and you're like, oh my word, those are the ones we quote all the time. Now you'll know where it is. There's like 100 of them. It's good to know the Bible. You should read it more than other books. Because all the books on boundaries and all the books on that everybody else wrote are not good. They're not this good. This is infallible. It is the only thing that will feed you, that will change your life and bring transformation. Y'all, I'm too amped and Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show by his good behavior his deeds in the gentleness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not be arrogant and so lie against the truth. Oh, we've got to humble ourselves. Jesus is so lowly. That's a whole nother thing. This wisdom is not that which comes down from above, but is earthly, natural, demonic. It is demonic to go your own way. The first commandment in the Satanic Bible is do as you will. Your biggest problem is not everything else. It's just what you want for yourself. It's our own selfish ambition. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every evil thing. When we get still and we get in his presence and we leave busyness at the cross, it's impossible to be selfishly ambitious when you are staying at the cross. It's impossible. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without hypocrisy. And the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. There's so many directions to go. We've got to start making our decisions from this place, the still place. We've got to walk through Jesus, who is the door. Go back to John 10. Go back and read it again. I am the door. He says that anyone who does not enter through him is a thief or a robber. If we do not discern the door, if we won't get still, if we won't walk through the door, who is Jesus the Christ, then we've gone through and we become a robber. We rob him of what belongs to him. We will come into his house robbing him of what is his, because we did not enter through his way. We entered the way we wanted to because we wouldn't slow down enough to hear what it is he desired of us. Without wisdom, without discernment. That's why we've got entire movements at times based on the doing instead of the being. And people wear out and walk away from God because they do all this stuff, get addicted to the gifts and all the stuff, but not the giver. They don't fall in love and stay in love. Jesus, I just want you to close your eyes. I'm going to honor time. They told me I could go 10-ish minutes over. That's what the paper said. So I'm going to use my ish right now. Hallelujah. Holy Spirit, we love your presence. We love your presence. Your word said that you are jealous for the Holy Spirit, which you gave to be in us. You're jealous for the Holy Spirit in us. Jealous for us to walk with him because you gave him to us as the most wonderful gift, the most wonderful help. Lord, I ask that you would speak peace, not calm. Calm is not peace. Calm is not peace. Still is not quiet. Still is not peaceful. Just because you are still does not mean you are still inside. Jesus, I ask that you would touch each one in this room, mind, body, and spirit. That you would literally nail every bit of us, every bit of our selfish ambition, every bit of our flesh to the cross of Christ. To your cross, that you would deal with it, that you would teach us, woo us again. Make us tender again. Make us hungry again. Deal with our pride and our arrogance that makes us want to do it our way. Think that we know the sin of presumption. Would you forgive us? Would you forgive us for taking things into our own hands? Would you forgive us for our self-sufficiency? Would you forgive us for falling in love with the sound of affirmation that comes from men, the sound of 1,000 voices responding to us? Would you forgive us for being addicted to the affirmations of the people around us? For waiting to hear what they have to say? And Lord, would you teach us, again, to be still, that your voice would be the first one we hear, the first, the last, and the loudest, and everything in between. Keep us tender, Lord, tender, 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 tender. Clean out our ears. They've taken in so much information, so much garbage, so much stuff. Would you cleanse our minds, cleanse our hearts, cleanse our ears, cleanse our eyes? We've seen so much. Would you clean us? Clean us. I know we need to go, Lord, but even as we leave this place, I ask you, Jesus, to touch them. And I ask that you would show each one in the fullness of life. You would deliver them from busyness, and that you would teach them in the fullness of life to walk with you, to keep the connection, It's not just about an hour a day. It's about him having every day, every moment, every breath belongs to you, Jesus. In utter givenness, help us to love you. And in all things, you would receive the glory, first place, preeminence. And we just say as we close out this moment, Lord, that you would keep our hearts open. And we say, may the Lamb receive the reward of his suffering in us. In Jesus' mighty name. In Jesus' mighty name. You guys just come get me when you're ready. I just want you to begin, just take a minute while they're coming up. Just turn your affection to the Lord. Turn your affection. You can do this anywhere. You can do this in your car. You can do it while your children are screaming. You can do it in the middle of a mess. You can do it in the middle of a chaotic room, in the middle of a chaotic church. So you can be still and know that he's God anywhere you are. He's God with us. He's God with us.